Hi, everyone. My name is Richie. I'm your host of Unscripted Commerce. In these sessions, I meet with amazing e-commerce founders and leaders of amazing brands across the ecosystem, and we get to hear firsthand some of the crazy challenges that they've had, their wins, and ultimately their learnings. And we're hoping by the end of these sessions, you could take something back with you to your business and help you succeed and overcome the challenges that you might be having today or in the future. This session is brought to you and produced by Levanta. We're an affiliate marketing platform for Amazon and Walmart sellers. So that means you can partner directly with over 30,000 plus vetted creators, influencers, publishers, affiliate media buyers, and so many more. That means you have direct relationships with them, and you can also drive relevant, highly valuable external traffic to your Amazon or Walmart listings. Today, I have Ryan Beltran, co-founder, CEO of Original Grain. Welcome.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. I'm excited.
I know Kale had introduced us, and I remember sitting with Kale at I think we're virtual. Like he's in, was it North Carolina or?
I can't remember where is he based or where's?
Well, he's New York based, but I know
yeah.
he's he travels during the summer to get out.
Oh, I think he's in Massachusetts right now. I think he's Northeast. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I remember talking to him. I felt like he was in front of me for some reason. Like he's that animated.
Yeah.
And I was like, by the way, I was like, do you know any other cool e-commerce founders? And he was like, yeah, my friend Ryan. I was like, cool. And when you make an ask, you don't generally expect them to follow through. But that was really cool that he was able to make the intro. I know we got to meet for some coffee for a full hour, and we just kind of nerded out on e-com for a while. So Original Grain, it looks like you're actually wearing one of the watches there.
Yeah, I got one on here.
So tell me the genesis of this product.
Yeah, I grew up in Oregon on the West Coast. I'm a West Coast kid. I've been here for about a year and a half in the city. Original Grain started in 2013. And it really was inspired in a lot of ways from growing up in the Pacific Northwest and the outdoors. Well, I'm sure we'll get to that part of the story where my brother really is the one who inspired me ultimately to take this to market. But, we were inspired, from growing up in the Northwest and in the trees and in the forests of Oregon, but also quality crafted products. You see that in a lot of brands that come from that area of the country. You see it from a lot of different regions at this point in consumer. And we just really wanted to build a product that at the time didn't really exist. And it was the first of its kind for sure. And really still to this day, there's not really anyone in the watch category doing quite what we are with reclaimed materials. I mean, the watch category to start is a pretty competitive space to enter. What gave you the gumption to even enter that? I would be so nervous. Casio, I mean, there's obviously the Rolex, but it's a whole different categorical group. Where you're let's do this. What happened there? I think I always tell people, so I was 24 when we launched. And I think knowing what I know now, I probably wouldn't get in the watch market. I'm being honest. Like you said, super competitive, brands with 100 plus years of history and legacy. I mean, obviously that's more in the premium, Rolexes and APs and Audemars and all that stuff. But even on the lower end, Fossils, I think has been around since the 80s. Timex, I think maybe since the 70s. Even Nixon, I don't know if you're familiar with Nixon, on the West Coast. But
I love Nixon. That was my college cool watch. I was I got a Nixon. Yeah. I went to Zoomies and I got a Nixon.
Yeah. I mean, they were the brand for a while, and they started in 97 or something. So these brands have been around a long time. I like to say it's a little bit of ignorance on fire. When you're that age, you don't know, and I think that's what makes starting brands at a young age a lot of fun. Is you don't have a lot of paralysis by analysis. You don't overthink every little decision. You just go. And I had this vision, and I thought the product was cool, and I thought it was a differentiator. And that was enough for me at the time to just say, let's go for it. Well, I'm sure we'll get to the margin conversation. I knew enough about business to know that you should have some amount of margin. I don't even think I knew what gross margin was. So, let me be honest. I was what do you mean gross margin? And so they have really good margin. Everybody in the watches knows jewelry do lend themselves to good margins and just doing something different. I thought that was enough to get us in the market and it's obviously done well, but
I think there might be some folks watching and even listening. They're not quite sure what Original Grain is. You did mention sustainable, repurposed materials. Can you just give them a synopsis of what it is? I mean, they might be able to see it on your wrist, but...
Yeah. Yeah,
is pretty cool, actually.
No, yeah, I'm wearing one of our newer. We launched this about a year and a half, 2 years ago. It's since become one of our top sellers. It's an automatic. We didn't do a lot of automatics when we launched, but we've got there. So we're a watch company, started in 2013. So going on 12 and a half years in business. We celebrated our 12th year in April. What started as like just exotic hardwoods, rosewood, maple, ebony, burlwood, things like that have, a really cool look and feel. And our whole thing from day one is like, how can wood be like an accent piece? Like we never wanted it to be the watch. Like there were some all wood watches on the market. And this is in my original Kickstarter video that we did. So we launched with the Kickstarter, raised like 400 grand in 30 days. And that was like a crazy moment of like, okay, like there's clearly some demand here.
Wait, what was your original goal though on Kickstarter?
It's like 10 grand.
What?
Yeah. So I moved to China in 2011. If we want to go back, we want to back it up. But I lived in Guangzhou for 3 years in the south, near Shenzhen. And Shenzhen really, this was 2011. So it was becoming like the manufacturing hub. It already had like stability there in the region. Guangzhou was probably more of a manufacturing hub than Shenzhen. Now it's not even close. I think Shenzhen still like is the number one. It's closer to Hong Kong. My goal was to find a product that I could bring to market. That was the goal. And I was 22, straight out of college, landed in the south of China. It was like 95 degrees and like basically felt like New York in August. You're just like, what am I doing? Some kid from Oregon, from Eugene, Oregon.
Whoa, Eugene's small too.
Tiny town.
Yeah.
College town.
Very much college town.
Yeah.
Like, did you have any connections? Like, were you just like, I'm going to China, I'm going to go do my thing?
Yeah, I had a friend of a friend.
Okay.
And he had kind of sold, I just talked to him today, and he's still one of my very, very best friends. And a guy I went to college with, it was his cousin, and I had mentioned I was going to China, and he said, you got to talk to my cousin Nick. And he's like, I was actually going to go to a different city. And then he's like, this is the place, man. Like, you got to come here. As if he knew, like, we were a bunch of kids, like, that's what I mean. Like, you just don't know what you don't know. And I think there's a lot of value in that, like, when you're getting started. You just go for it.
I mean, ignorance can be very bliss,
for
to
sure.
be quite frank. And you went on this venture with your brother, Andrew. Is that right?
Yeah. Yep.
And he's kind of the one that kind of kickstarted this. And so tell me about like, what was the original prototype like? And what did he see in this maybe you didn't see?
Yeah. So like as the story goes, my brother served in the Marine Corps. And so he was coming back from a deployment. It's a pretty cool story. He comes into Hong Kong. It's about a 2-hour train ride from Guangzhou. I have the sample. I'd been kind of working on some prototypes. I met with him. I said, hey, I got something to show you. He just immediately fell in love with the product. He thought it was the coolest thing. At the time, we weren't really thinking about going into business together, though. Like, I was just like, oh, what do you think? I go home that summer, like maybe 2 or 3 months later. I'm back for like 3 weeks. And I'm like talking to him like, hey, I need like 5 or 6 grand, like just to make some samples. Like, you know what I mean? Just some molds. Like I need a little bit of, and he's like, I'll give it to you.
I mean, that's a ton of money for like 23, 24-year-old.
Yeah. Like I had no money. Like 5 grand is like, like,
whoa.
Yeah. And so he ends up writing me a check. I think it was $8,000 or $9,000. And we make about 200 watches and we're like, how are we going to sell them? We can't figure it out. And I wake up one morning and I'm like, there's this crowdfunding thing. And I'm like, what is it? I don't know if you guys remember like the coolest cooler, like Pebble watch.
I used to actually wanted to buy a Pebble watch, but I was so broke because I was so young that,
they were like they put Kickstarter on the map.
Yeah, they were the original Apple Watch. It was like black and white screens. And
pre-Apple Watch.
Whoa.
Yeah. They were like the OG, no pun intended, like smartwatch.
Yeah, literally.
And so I just was like, we should do a Kickstarter and see what happens. And that's what I already said. Like it raised 400 grand in 30 days, and like I was able to pay Andrew back. So that was win number one, and kind of the rest is history.
So would you consider the Kickstarter like a seed investment, and then did you guys go after some more additional funding to back it?
Yeah. So that initial capital, to be totally honest, we didn't even know what to do with. We were like, I guess we're gonna buy inventory. And then we wanted to get into retail. Like this was like pre-Facebook ads, like, right? I mean, it was like a thing, right? I think like Facebook ads, if you ask like the early guys, they probably started running ads in like 2010, 2011. this is like when pages like were a thing and likes mattered, right? Like this is early. I don't even know if direct to consumer was what we called it.
No, I think direct to consumer was like a circa 2015.
Like 15 maybe?
When Allbirds started hitting San Francisco, and they were actually selling in coffee shops. I actually bought one of the, I told you, the first pairs out of this coffee shop called Craftsman and Wolves.
Oh, crazy.
Yeah. So if you ever get a chance, quick plug for them. I love their Rebel.
That's awesome.
It's like this muffin with like a boiled egg inside.
Yeah.
And like it just like bleeds out yolk.
I love that.
Anyways, I asked quick tangent, but yes, DTC 2015.
Yeah, it's like the Allbirds and Everlane, like cut out the middleman. Like that was like the early like marketing of the like mid 2010s. And so we had that initial round of capital. We're trying to get into retail. We didn't know about like Facebook ads. We'd kind of heard of them. And retail's not really working out. We fire up our first Facebook ads and we're like, holy crap, like this is working.
It was cheap at the time too.
Yes, very cheap. Like if you ask anyone who's advertising in that era, like their biggest mistake is they didn't spend enough. Like a 5x 6 return was bad. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like now everybody's eking it out on like a 1.7 like CAC. Like it's, you know what I mean? Because like it's all CAC to LTV these days. It's not about necessarily that first purchase, but like everybody's just printing money, and you just didn't know how good you had it. But the different time, you know, different place.
I mean, that's kind of like the birth of growth hacking for the most part. It's like finding those channels that are super effective, underutilized, like super low CPCs, super high, super low CAC, super high ROAS, like all that stuff that goes with that. So you took this, so you guys took some investment funding from, was it from friends? Was it from, or from who, if you don't mind sharing? And then two, like, what did you guys do with that investment? So because you were trying to get into retail, you didn't know what to do with the Kickstarter money. And of course you started acquiring customers via D2C, which wasn't really probably coined at that time.
At the time. But no, like we made a hard pivot into like direct to consumer. We were like, hey, this is working. We met somebody, we were in San Diego. So we built the brand in San Diego up until about 2021. Just after COVID, we're now since fully remote. That's just why I'm here in New York. We've got people all over the country now, but we had an office and a team of like 18 in downtown San Diego. And we met an investor, and he really liked the product. He just happened to be at our 3PL, one of our biggest holidays. I think it was like 2014, 2015. And at the time it felt big. I don't think it was that big, but he's seeing the watches go out and he's like, what is this? And long story short, we ended up taking a angel investment from him and another guy, which was great at the time. You know, we were able to put a ton of money into marketing. We had enough money for inventory. I think it was super helpful, like at the time. There's a lot of lessons like I can definitely take from that. Like, you know, I'm happy to share, like, you know, the good of it is like, you know, you've got people who are experienced who are investing money in capital. There's a lot of talk about this like founder mode, like, right? Like I think it's Brian Chesky from Airbnb. Like,
yes,
you know,
founder mode
went viral like maybe like 6 months ago, maybe a year ago. And he talks a lot about that. And I think there's a lot of truth, especially for early stage, in particular consumer product brands. I think it does apply to like, you know, Airbnb and these bigger like public companies, but I think even more so to like smaller companies where like founder led and founder mode is how you should be building in today's world. And that's why I think you're seeing so many like TikTok brands take off and like these influencer led brands that, you know, it's just someone with an iPhone who's passionate about a product that solves a problem. And I think that we, if I'm being totally like candid here, like lost our way a little bit because we had investment, and this is the classic tale of like VC funding and investor like capital is that you get all this money and then you've got to like make a return on that. And so it's a lot of pressure to sell without being focused necessarily. And I know this isn't always the case on providing value to the customer and the product. And I do think like one thing Brian actually said from Airbnb that I loved about founder mode is like being in the details and being like the chief product officer. Like the founder CEO should be like your product guy. And I think for maybe 5 or so years, we've since bought them out and it's been amazing ever since. And I think it's because we got back in the driver's seat when it came to product, when it came to customers, and just providing like as much value as possible to them.
Yeah, it's almost like having two managers that are like, hey, do this, no, do this. And you're like, oh, okay, but like, how do I take the business to that next step, right?
For sure.
And so what was that moment that you and Andrew were like, we need to bootstrap this business? Like, what was like that I'm sure it could have been many moments, but like, what was that? that snap, I guess you could
like
say.
kind of when we like decided that it was time to like maybe take it back and like buy the investors out.
Yeah.
It was just like I think it was like right time, right place. Like we had built the brand I think we had done, I don't know, maybe just shy of 100 million in lifetime sales. There was a ton of proof of concept. Like we'd done a lot of big partnerships, but I think what we realized is that if we really wanted to take it to that like next level, we just wanted to do it our way.
Yeah.
And there were some like differences of opinion in terms of like who we should partner with. Mm-hmm. Should we even do partnerships? And we've done a lot of licenses since we bought them out, like Jack Daniels. We're doing a thing with Realtree. We just did a thing with Grand Ole Opry, Ford, like Coors Banquet. Like,
yeah, I just saw the Coors one a week ago, right?
Yeah. There's just becomes like a difference of like opinion on like how you should approach it. And you mentioned like bootstrapping. I would almost refer to like, yes, it was bootstrapping, but I would say it was like bootstrapping after we had raised money. So it's like almost backwards. Like we talked about that, right?
Yeah.
It's like typically you bootstrap and then raise.
Yes.
Like we like raised, and it wasn't a lot of money. Like I'm not talking about tens of millions of dollars, and we went the other way. And I think what we realized is that like, we also, like the last 5 years in particular, brands have been able to be built very lean. You don't need a lot of employees. You need experts in certain fields. We were talking about that before the show too. It's like, you can build like I'm convinced a $30 million to $50 million company with less than 10 people. And I don't think that was the way of the 2010s. I think it was about how big your office and how much cold brew you had, and like, that was just, it was all venture backed, and it was just like that was the way,
It was, and things have changed so much. I mean, back then, to your point, like, oh, you have 2 ping pong tables?
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah.
You have a front desk person? Yeah. Oh my gosh. And now it's like people don't even want to come to the office. I mean, with the exception of like third place is kind of like where we're at right now. There's all that overhead, I'm sure, that comes with the role or with running an organization like that. And I think, who was it? There was a company out there. It was Instagram. I was just reading about this. Instagram, I think, had 13 employees, and Mark Zuckerberg bought it out for $1 billion. And I think it's turned into a $20 billion business since. Yeah. So you went bootstrapped, and then what did it look like next? Like what were you talked about going to that next level. What does like next level mean for you and Andrew? Yeah,
like as it like sits today, like where we're at, like in our current, like where we've got the business.
You're being humble about that because you are multi-8 figures.
Yeah,
so.
We've done, yes. Well, like I think we've seen the proof in the pudding. Like the last 3 years have been like high growth, profitable. And I think it goes back to just being like hyper focused on like providing value. And we've done it almost entirely on watches. We have other accessories. I think that's one of the things we're super focused on over the next like 3 years. And that's the other thing is like, as the more experience you get, the more you realize like the day-to-day matters, but like if you can pick your head up and look out, like, we've got a 26 roadmap, and we've got we're working on 27 like already. And I remember when we started, like I never thought we would get to a place where I could be thinking about like 2 months in advance, let alone 2 years. And I know like that's not even a lot. Like I'm sure like the Nikes of the world, they're looking at 2030 right now, or whatever.
The concept houses that they have.
Yeah. But I do think there's like a lot of like I've learned lessons. I don't think you can be too far out either, because you have to like see what the market wants. What do people resonate with? Mm-hmm. Like this watch, for example, like this was a new silhouette. We weren't really sure. And like it's unlocked like a whole different customer for us. It's slightly more expensive than our base model. It's an automatic versus a quartz.
So what's the difference between quartz and automatic?
Yeah, so typically, I mean, like most watch brands in the fashion category are going to be selling a quartz movement, battery operated. There's a lot of benefits to it. You don't have to worry about winding it. It doesn't it's battery operated. So you have to replace it every 3 to 5 years. It just works. Automatics, on the other hand, don't have a battery, and so you never have to replace it. But if you take it off, so this has like a 40-hour power reserve. Okay. And so if I take it off and don't wear it in the next 40 hours, it will stop, and I'll have to reset it when I put it back on.
Got it. Okay.
So if you wear it every day, no problems. Like I've been wearing this all week. It's the right time. What is it? 5:10. I can read time. that's always a test. Like, like some people like Gen Z can't read what.
Talk to Gen Alpha. That's what they got to say.
They're like, we were actually going to do like a man on the street thing where we walk around and like, can you read this? And like, just see what people can like.
Highly recommend. Go to Madison Square Park.
Yeah.
Then you have to go to Washington Square Park.
Yeah, Washington Square.
So that's going to be a whole different category of person.
Like demo.
Yeah. Then go to Tompkins and they'll be like, I don't want to talk to you.
Yeah. Like, how about you get away from me?
Yeah, that's exactly it.
But,
so we'll get into the margins because the margins that you told me are insane for hard goods, but I think we need to save that because that is pretty juicy stuff.
Sure.
But more specifically, as it pertains to your identifying new customer types, you talked about offering new ancillary products. I think you mentioned wedding bands. I think you went into clothing, jewelry. What's been your strategy about identifying either new addressable audiences or increasing that LTV with current customers? Because I think you mentioned it's about 2.5 watches per customer today, if you're comfortable with sharing that.
For sure.
Okay. So 2.5 watches per customer. Clearly they're not buying half the watch, but you know. We've been digging, I'll just be fully transparent. So we see about 25%. It used to be about 30, but we've been growing acquisition pretty quickly. We grew about 75% last year, and we'll grow about 50% this year. New customers, right?
Total business.
Total business. Okay.
Total business.
Okay.
And so since we're growing relatively quick, I mean, it's pretty good growth, especially in this day and age. Our repeat order rate has gone down. So we were at 30%, which is decent for watches. I think best in class, like supplements and like apparel, maybe they want to be between like 50 and 70%, like on the high end. Like that's really healthy, right? Because now you're 60, 70% of your business is repeat. Like that's the holy grail. If you're starting a brand today and you're listening to this, like have LTV in mind. Do not build a single order. And I repeat, do not start a single order business. Like
couches.
Yeah. Like it's just really hard. And like, unless you can be first order profitable, which we have to be, it just puts you like against the 8 ball a little bit. We have really good margin. We can spend a good amount on our CAC, but we don't have a lot of LTV. And so we've been really, really focused on how do we increase that. So recently our repeat order rate has been about 25%, but the revenue on that is a little bit less. And so what we're trying to figure out is how can we get somebody to come back quicker? Because in watches, it might take them 12 months. It might take them 24 months. They don't need a watch tomorrow. Or in the next 30 days, which you would see in more like in supplements and consumable beauty, things like that, right? That's why they get these crazy valuations. And so how could we do that? Well, I think you have to just be ruthless with your product development and launching new products. And like, it's a conversation that we've had a lot of back and forth on, both my brother and I and our leadership team about, if we're a watch brand, and this is something like I think founders can fall into the trap of, is being like too emotionally tied to the hero product. And I found myself a few times like candidly being like, can we sell something else? Like we're a watch company. Like watch companies don't sell rings. They don't sell sunglasses. Like, but I do think if you're going to take like this direct to consumer strategy, like it's important to have something else to sell your customers. And so we are looking at like a bunch of stuff. We're looking at knives. We're looking at even cologne, like in fragrance. We sell a lot of whiskey barrel watches with reclaimed barrels. And so like we know that's about 60% of our sales. Like they have an affinity for that. Well, guess what? Like men's cologne is modeled in a lot of bourbon and vanilla and tobacco and sandalwood, like all the things that in pine, you know what I mean? Like woodsy, whiskey, musky like smells. And so we're like, why not try and just see what happens? And that would be amazing because it's consumable. And it's a great gift, right? Which we do a lot of. It's a very giftable item. So holiday is going to make up, 45, 50% of our revenue for the year. And that's a whole nother like conversation of just like how you plan for that. Like,
I mean, we could talk about that pretty hardcore. I'm like, forget the script.
Yeah,
this is a good combo. I mean, okay. So, you talked about, again, these ancillary products, identifying it. And what I'm seeing here is like this natural ebb and flow of like eventually even potentially even selling, you mentioned consumables, but like even like whiskey if you wanted to, or if you wanted to go into food products. I mean, let's be real, like Patagonia, they have subdivision of Patagonia provisions. Why would you would never think a clothing brand would sell food? Yeah,
like a hiking, like you know what I mean? Like they were built on like hiking gear, right? Or
yeah,
like
climbing gear. And that like that's their core. And then you have luxury brands like Gucci and Ralph Lauren. They have coffee shops now.
Right.
And it's creating that
it's
ecosystem.
the lifestyle, and like how do you go from like a product to like a brand, like in a lifestyle brand at that. I think that's the thing we're trying to figure out as you go from, 20, 30 million to 50 or more. I think every category is different, but like for us to do that, I think we're going to have to unlock new categories. And because it is like we talked about earlier, or is not like what we talked about earlier, where you can just turn meta ads on, get a 5x return and like, just like keep it rolling. The economics of direct to consumer have changed. And I think that it's just an important part of the strategy in today's world.
You mentioned diversification. You have some amazing partnerships. Like in the grand scheme, optics, you might look like a small brand, not by the numbers. I mean, you may have mentioned some pretty large numbers there. We don't need to get into the specifics, but you've partnered with Ford, Jack Daniels. I mean, you have multiple products with Jack Daniels, other primary, and then you have Jack Daniels Honey, which will be a fire question later. I mean, you mentioned Coors. I mean, there's a lot of alcohol brands, but there's also adjacent.
It's Grand Ole Opry. There's music like Taylor guitars. We're launching one with Fender next year, which I'm really excited because, like, if you look at like one of our tests for partnerships is how much revenue do they do, and I've got a whole like let's just talk about it. So like when we look at partnerships, like if they do less than $1 billion, we know that it won't be a big needle mover from a revenue perspective. There's just not enough people who are fans of that brand. We've done partnerships with, sub $100 million in revenue, like their sales. Like Jack Daniels is what, like $5 billion a year or something, maybe some in top line. And so like that's been it's also like our bread and butter. It's what we do. Like that was kind of a layup. And so like when we look at like Fender versus Taylor, like Taylor's done phenomenally well. And I'm really curious to see how Fender does. They're more like electric, Taylor's more acoustic. Does the demographic cross over? Like, or did Taylor perform really well because it's like more handcrafted and like a little more premium, but significantly smaller in terms of like their annual revenue. And so we like to look at that as like a benchmark before we like choose who we're going to work with. Like as we've grown and we've identified like new partners, one thing we're thinking about, like, do you know the golf brand Malbon? They're out of LA. They're just like super cool. They've been around for maybe 5 or 6 years, but they just drop like collab after collab after collab. And they're not all like, they do stuff with Adidas and they did something with Jimmy Choo, and like they do big stuff, but they also do small stuff. And I think that like they both serve different purposes. One is going to like, it's like tied to like licensing and royalty checks to that brand that has like minimum guarantees attached to, and you've got to sell X amount of units to like pay your royalties, right? So typically licensing deals are structured at like 10% of sales. Okay. So like we pay Jack Daniels 10%. Any Jack Daniels products that we sell, we give them 10%.
And do you pay that up front, or is that something that's kind of like, end of quarter?
It's annually.
Quarterly. Okay. So there's no upfront cash for the most part.
No, for the most part. Some of the deals will require, like, I actually know a lot about licensing since we've done a lot of it, but like there can be an amount due on signing. Okay. And then typically after that, it's a yearly guarantee, a minimum guarantee.
So Ford sounds like buying a car.
Yeah.
Licensing.
Yeah.
Hey, put your down payment down.
Well, but you got to be careful. You got to know that you can hit the sales. Like we're looking at a deal right now. I won't say the name, but like the biggest motorcycle company. I'm sure everyone would know who it is. And they want a huge check up front. And so we're like, do we feel confident enough to do that deal? And so like, that's how we make those decisions. But like, as we look out into the future, we're like, are there partnerships that may not move the needle from a revenue perspective, but they help the brand build like credibility and stickiness with our customer base?
That's interesting. It's kind of like my hypothesis around a lot of stores in Soho or stores in Hudson Yards. They're there for a brand building exercise to say, I'm here.
Right.
And it's actually good. And I want to touch on this too, because a lot of founders generally will be always tied to revenue, which is, extremely important. But now, what is your methodology around thinking about brand building versus just pure sales?
So I think like you go through these like phases as a brand and as an operator. And I think like if I had to break it up, like I think that first 10 million, like you have to be ruthless about revenue and like maybe 10, maybe even 15 to 20. Let's call it the first 20. You've got to be tied to sales. You got to get there. But I think is like you hit a certain like level where top of funnel awareness becomes critical. How do you get in front of the masses? And then how do you start to build brand? And I'm sure there's some people for sure who would disagree, like, but it also comes back to like, what are you trying to build? Like I have friends who have epic lifestyles that run $10 million businesses that make, 20% EBITDA, and they're stoked. And that's because that's what they wanted to build. But if you want to build, I think, again, 30, 50 or $100 million top line, which I think most people like have those numbers like in their minds when they set it into consumer. Like there's a point where you have to start investing in brand. There's not going to be a ROAS metric tied to it. there just won't, right? Like it's not a Facebook ad.
Yeah.
And so we're dealing with that right now as we hit this next phase. Is like, how do you get there, and how do you like get in front of the right people, your audience, in a way that builds just like stickiness and like affinity. Like you talk about that store, and like, I don't think we're going to open our own retail stores. Like I've looked at it, maybe not. But like, yeah, how do you build those moments for consumers to interact with your brand and build loyalty and build community?
So let's tie that back into the investment conversation, going bootstrapped. First of all, the partnerships component, you talked about expanding into new types of partnerships. Has that helped you do research? Maybe not the development component, but research on new segments to go into. And then 2, you talked about this brand component and going to that next level. Because you went bootstrap, did that enable you to then be able to do this type of larger type of like, I don't know what the right words to say here, but is like bigger moves, like, oh, we're going to work with this artist at this stadium, and which is super cool on the collab side. But,
like how do we like use it to identify customers?
Yes, exactly. Because it's low risk for you, or lower risk.
I'm really glad you asked, because there was a time, and I think this is another like trap, quote unquote, you might fall into, is like you become like, brands can become the byproduct of their like environment. And we built the brand in San Diego, and I would say that's not our core demographic. It's like not a very SoCal surf oriented brand. And I think for a while there, like we were doing partnerships with all the reggae band, like California reggae, like Revolution and Iration. And like, there's nothing wrong with that. Like friends with all those guys.
Love Revolution, by the way.
Like,
saw them in the Bay Area. They had their golden retriever just hanging out on the stage.
Yeah.
Very cool concert. Anyways.
They're awesome guys. Like, I think what we've identified through like this partnership with Coors Banquet and this partnership with Ford and Grand Ole Opry and Jack Daniels, it's like, think about that archetype for a second. It's like that guy probably drives a Ford, would like to go to the Grand Ole Opry and watch his favorite country music artist. Like, probably drinks Coors Banquet, like, you know what I mean? Hopefully not on the way, but probably does. No, there's a demographic of a person there. And I think that's what we figured out is like, oh, like these partners do like start to weave like there's a common thread there in terms of who they are and what they do like outside of like their normal life. I think like that's been part of our strategy like for the next few partners is like I mentioned Realtree, the #1 camo brand, super centered around hunting and the outdoors. Like I think that's going to be real. We're going to do a thing with Remington next year, the original gun manufacturer. Like you see what I'm saying? Like there's a guy there that represents all of these brands. Like you could draw a Venn diagram, and like in the middle of that is all of these. This little universe. Similar
to content marketing, right? You have your core and then you have all the pieces around it.
Yeah.
And here you are in New York City.
I know. Yeah, it's like, wait a minute. This guy's not living the brand.
Just kidding.
Yeah.
But then, you talked about these larger moves. So let's talk just quickly about one of the key partnerships where you worked with this arena, right? And they were, I think you guys...
In Golden State. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, no, there's Golden State, but then there was the music arena.
Oh, Grand Ole Opry.
Yes. Yeah, so you guys repurposed their woods for watches, is that right? And then you did a collab with the artists as they performed inside the location.
At the venue, yeah.
It's wild.
Yeah.
So was that a brand play or was that like what was that?
I would give that, I would like, if we're talking about like needle movers and brand plays, like I'd put that probably somewhere in the middle, but like slightly more towards the brand side. Okay. Like it's music's most iconic stage. Like that's their tagline. And like, obviously that's like a bit of a hot take, but not really. Like you're talking to like Elvis Presley, Johnny Cash, all these famous artists, Bob Dylan. That's the rite of passage for not necessarily country artists. It's become like the home of country music, but like it dates back to I think like the 40s. And so there's just like a lot of history and legacy, and it's just like the perfect alignment with what we're trying to do with watches. Like one of our taglines for years now has been like, it's more than a timepiece, it's a piece of time. And like, how can we encapsulate that in a watch and like share that with people? And like we did a watch with the original Yankee Stadium. Did you even know that?
Yeah, I think I saw that. I don't know
Yeah.
the story of what you repurposed
Yeah.
from the stadium. I know about the Golden State Warriors, which hits home for me.
Yeah.
But yeah, tell me more about that.
So the Yankees was like our first big partner. It was 2016, and we got a license with all of Major League Baseball, and then did a one-off thing with the Yankees where we took stadium chairs from like original Yankee Stadium, and the seats were actually from 1923, and repurposed them into like a collection of only like 1,500 watches. Not going to like move the needle significantly. We're talking about 1,500 units. I mean, they were priced at like $1,000, so you can do the math.
Okay,
Like,
so I was curious about the price point of these things. I was like, that's history.
yeah, it's like a piece of history, and like that's actually where that tagline came from. Was that collection, and it kind of took us down this path of like, what else could we reclaim, and like what other stories could we tell that people would resonate with. And we have this whole military line that's centered around reclaimed ammo crates. And my brother's, like I told you, was he's a veteran, and like we do a portion of those proceeds that go back to Gold Star families who had like a father or mother who died in combat. And like there's just like all these different angles that I think that I know we can take and that we've taken over the years. And it's really quite endless. Like when you think about like the different materials you can use. And I'm always like scared of like, what if we like run out of like stories to tell?
But so many stories. Have you seen the movies these days? There's plenty of stories to tell.
Yeah.
Did going bootstrapped enable you to do these big power plays?
Yes, because it allowed us to focus. But I don't know if it was like the capital reason was like why, like the money itself. I think it was just it was more so that Andrew and I were back in control of the things that we were doing, and the partnerships that we were partnering with. I think that was the bigger unlock for us over the last 5 years since it's just been us again. And just having like that North Star vision of like, what do we want to do? What are the stories we want to tell? And not being like so fixated on like hyper growth and revenue. Like we all know like revenue's vanity, like profits, and it's true. I know it's cliche, but I think when you build a really strong foundation, also like cliche, but true, is that like you can build from that. And I think that's what we're starting to see is like, we've taken the time to light the ship, get lean, focus on product, and now we can like grow again.
One of the coolest things has been your margins, because I had Chris Mead on from CrossNet, co-founder and CMO. And I remember having him on and he said, as a hard goods brand, 50% should be your floor.
Yep.
You're
closer to 80.
Yeah. What the heck? How are you doing that?
Yeah.
Like,
I mean,
are you okay with breaking that down?
Yeah. I mean, I think the like uninteresting answer is that watches are just like inherently good margin, like high margin products. Like jewelry even better than watches. Like, I hate to say, but like, all the jewelry we buy, like, and I know this, anyone in consumer product knows that like when you buy a product like online, like that like that brand didn't spend that much to,
right.
You know what I mean? Like once you like know that, like it's hard to unknow that.
Yeah. You see, look at luxury, like jewelry, like, I don't know, you can go to like a Givenchy or like a Balenciaga and you buy the jewelry and it's made of like, was it
like brass?
Brass.
Like
yeah.
brass.
And you're like, what?
Like plated with like rhodium or something. It's like that makes it feel like high end. It's like, that's like a $7 chain. It's
wild.
Yeah.
Okay. So now I get the economics of that. Well, you're also using sustainable sustainable wood in the product. I remember we were sitting around I think it was like one of the coffee tables and you were like, this wood here.
Yeah.
How much? Like 1,500 watches?
Yeah, like this piece of wood right here could make at least a couple hundred. Like right here, just this.
Sorry, not 15.
Well, I mean, this whole table could for sure, but like this little piece here.
Oh wow!
Like one whiskey barrel can make 300 watches.
Okay.
One whiskey barrel.
Wow.
Because we're not it's just like an inlay in the product, and like again, it's like more of an accent piece. It's not meant to be the product,
right?
Because like, let's be honest, an all wood watch probably wouldn't be very durable.
No, it would get weird.
It would also feel like very novel, and I think that's something like candidly we've had to like educate our customers on pretty consistently. The number one thing we see, and it's a double-edged sword, is like I thought it was going to be lighter, or like like B, like, oh, it's a lot heavier than I thought. I think that's the thing. When they see wood and they see watch, they think this isn't going to be very durable. It's not going to last. And so we've had to like constantly educate. There's just not a lot of like people doing what we're doing. So it's like not super familiar for like a customer.
So we might be jumping around a little bit here because we got through a lot of the questions, which is great. Let's talk quickly about just your marketing today, because I know back in the day, you guys were using Facebook and that was very good ROAS, and now it's like 1.3, 1.7 is like you're winning there.
Yeah.
What are the channels right now moving that are moving the needle, whether that's AOV, LTV? I know you're trying to improve or increase LTV, not necessarily just improve it, but like, what are those channels? What is the mix like these days for you?
I mean, we're still like 80% Meta in terms of our marketing mix. Yeah. So probably 80% Meta, 10% on Google, which is essentially just like brand and like a little bit of like, gifting stuff around Father's Day and Christmas. Like not a lot of non-brand with Google. We have virtually no Amazon presence, maybe a little bit. Like 5% of our sales are there. That's not even really a marketing channel, more of a sales channel. We're still like heavily reliant on Meta. The thing that we're most excited about and that we're seeing a lot of promise in is YouTube. Both on the like paid side, like pre-roll, mid-roll, things like that, but also on the sponsorship side and doing podcasts and paying for like, we just did a $30,000 deal with Bert Kreischer.
Okay.
It like crushed, like
Literally.
crushed. Yeah. Like, and so we're like, like, it's one of those things like we've done over the years, but like, the other thing is like, as you grow, you can take bigger swings. Yeah. And I think that's a huge like advantage that you don't realize in the early days. Like I remember thinking like, I can't spend 20 grand on a podcast sponsorship. It's a lot of money. Like, you know what I mean? And like, what if it doesn't work? Right. And so we've been able to just take some bigger swings. Now we're looking at like building that out and like working with some bigger, and I'm sure we'll have misses. Like I know we will. But like we sponsor most of the whiskey YouTube guys. I'm talking like 200-300 subs, maybe like $4 or $5 grand an episode, but those kill it. Like it's such a specific audience of like our customers, and someone, as you know, someone like listening to this or watching a YouTube video is invested.
So a lot of micro influencers, micro creators, whatnot.
Yep. But like not Instagram and TikTok. Like we haven't had a lot of success with that. And so YouTube is like the thing we're most focused on now.
When you're looking at the creators themselves, like what are you looking for in terms of quality? I know you mentioned like 200-300 subs, which means they're highly dialed in long form content, but how is the Original Grain watch or any of the products in your portfolio like integrated into the content?
Yeah, so like, I mean, a lot of them are just like straight ad reads. I mean, we're giving them the talking points and like letting them riff on it,
Yeah.
But like, so the whiskey guys are like already talking about whiskey. So we're going to send them one of our whiskey, like this watch, one of our Jack Daniel's watches. We did a thing with Buffalo Trace a couple years ago, and those kill it. But like as we expand like affinities, like one of the main reasons we went for Realtree in the hunting audience is because now that's a whole, like it's a similar guy, but like your whiskey guy may or may not be a hunting guy, but like from a demographic, like household income perspective, it's probably pretty similar.
Yeah.
And so I'm really excited. Like hunting has, like we just did a quick search the other day, and there's like more hunting channels than whiskey channels for sure. Wow. And they're like tapped in. I mean, like people are like watching these videos, So we'll look at average view, and then what we typically do is back into a CPM. So we'll say like, even if you've got 1 million subs, what was your average view over the last like 10 or 20 videos? And then we'll back into a CPM that we want to spend on that average view, not the number. Like I don't really care about your subs.
Yeah.
Like, cause like, you know what I mean? Like,
that makes sense too. Cause I've seen like, on the marketing side, we've done some hunting, and it's a different beast than what you're working with. And, we'll look at the subs, but then we'll also look at views. And sometimes the subs are off from
way off
the views. Like the view, like subs are like 20,000, and then you look, you're like 45 views.
Yeah, like no views at all.
100 views.
Yeah. What am I paying for, right?
Exactly.
When we first started, we were like $25 CPM. Like, well, I'm not paying more than that. Like Facebook CPM for us right now is like $12. So we're like, I'm not going to spend, and sometimes lower, but I'm not going to spend, that's double, like $25 CPM. Obviously much more like tapped in audience, like more bought in, whatever. We're now finding like we can go up to like $50, $60, $70 CPM on that channel. But like anything above that, it's like just really hard to back out.
Okay.
Like, it's just hard.
I have this hypothesis, and we GEO starting to take off, and LLMs prioritize different sources. So YouTube, Reddit, etc. And, when you're having creators create high quality content like this, I'm sure you're probably getting picked up by the LLMs. You've
like in search. Like, yeah, it's funny. At dinner the other night, we like all were like sitting there, everybody's like Googling their brand to see if it would come up, or like, what's the best, like it was with a baby brand, and their high chair like came up, and I was like, that's cool. So we index our site for it, but we don't have a strategy for it right now, which probably is a mistake. Like,
well, I would say this, like we have like a hypothesis that with affiliates, or actually any creator that you're partnering with, more so affiliates in my opinion, when you have at scale content high quality content that's being produced, whether that format's written, if it's video, across any platform. Right. And then imagine you have 100, let's say 300 affiliates. You have potentially 300 original pieces of content by third parties with audiences. And like, I could see that being highly scalable, because try to do that in-house, like with SEO, you still got to do that probably. Right.
Yeah.
So I was just curious if you are all like checking that out, seeing what you guys are doing these days with that.
No, influencers hasn't been like a huge like focus, but like almost just from that perspective could be worth it just to have like more pieces of content like in the wild that are being indexed by algorithm and by everything, just to like rank better,
exactly.
So.
I mean, I thought about that too. I was like, well, that's how you can do at scale kind of stuff. Yeah. And the first part, you got to get the affiliates or the partners to actually work with. Yeah. So, we talked a lot about just, your learnings. I guess one question I have for you is, if someone's going after or is looking for investment, whether that's from a firm, an individual, a family, whatever, what should they be looking for in the right investors? And this isn't a representation necessarily of your experience, but like, what you learn and what you would recommend to others.
So I think there's smart money and not smart money. They both serve a purpose, right? Like, and I think it depends on where you're at in that growth cycle. I think early on, like smart money, like strategic money isn't as important. Like, I think you're just trying to get something off the ground. You want to prove product market fit. I think friends and family can be great for that. I think they're going to be your biggest fans. They're going to be like telling everybody about it. I even think that's where like you could potentially go the route of like doing the like equity crowdfunding. Mm-hmm. I forget the name of that software, but a friend of mine who runs Sunday Golf did that. And I think they only gave away like 10% or something of the company, but they raised like $1 million from, I'm probably botching this, but like at least 1,000 people or more. But now they're like invested, like literally have equity. And so I think like early stage, like it's less about strategic and more about just like having enough capital to like prove that you have a product that people want. Mm-hmm. As you grow, like I think, and the other thing about like that type of money is they're not going to have as much say in what you're trying to build. I think when you go the VC route, and we've seen this time and time again, and like we all know like where that, like a lot of these brands that haven't panned out, is there's just so much pressure for these returns, and the cap tables get messy really quick. And I think unfortunately the founders are the ones who work their tail off, and like you hear the horror stories, like even if you sell for 50 or 100 million bucks and there's like not much left for the original founder. That's a whole other topic of like preferential stack and like all that, all the like equity piece. But that's my perspective on like raising, is that I think if you're a little more experienced, I've thought about this for the next thing. Would I raise money? Like, cause there's part of me that's like, oh, hell no. Like I'm not doing that. And then there's other part of me. It's like, but if I believe in like the white space of, some consumable product, or that's like where my head goes, like CPG. Mm-hmm. And that's having its time in the sun right now. We've all seen like the Poppy exits. And
I mean,
like,
there's new ones entering that very crowded prebiotic space.
It's just the TAM is like it's just big. Like I heard something the other day, like I think it was Sean Frank from Ridge Wallet. And he's like, you can't outmuscle TAM. And I just really resonated with me because, and I think we've experienced that to some extent, like even in our category of being like a wood like based watch. And I think we have decent TAM, but like no matter how good your product is, if there's not a big enough TAM, like you're always going to be swimming upstream. Mm-hmm. And so I make that point because I think if you feel strongly that you've got like the right product in the right market with enough TAM, like maybe go out and like you could go out and raise some money, mm-hmm. And I also think if you've already had like an exit, you already have like that nest egg. Like those are the people I think I see raising more often than not. It's because it's like, well, if this doesn't work out, like it's not the end of the world, right? Like I have something to like fall back on. So
23-year-old would not say the same thing.
No.
Move to Costa Rica, go sell coconuts afterwards.
Yeah. Hey, that's probably not a bad life either, though.
Hey, you know what? It may have crossed my brain at some point in my career.
Yeah.
I guess some other questions would be, rapid fire questions.
Okay.
Jack Daniels or Jack Daniels honey?
Jack Daniels for sure.
Yeah.
Single barrel though.
Okay, single barrel. Yeah. I do like a good Jack Daniels honey.
Yeah, are you a fan? I love it in the summer. It's good though.
Yeah, so my first time experiencing it was the end of my college career. A really good friend of mine, we were all at our friend's house, and her dad was there, and I was like, Jack Daniel's honey, oh cool. When I sipped it, and I was like, this is actually pretty good, actually.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a little bit of the sweetness in there, so that's
I was
pretty
surprised.
good.
We sold out in less than 2 weeks. That was one of those I was like super not like confident. I was like, this might work, this might not work. It was like 500 units, but still like.
I mean, that's a drop, and also it was a cool design. It is a cool design. It's got like the honeycomb, and like that's cool vibe actually. Yeah. So I think you guys did a great job on that design. Where can people find you on social?
Sure.
Or Original Grain on social? Yeah,
you can definitely check out Original Grain on IG. That's mainly where we post. We're actually working on a new whiskey page.
Oh,
that's like a separate like little side project that we can use to like, I don't know, more top of funnel.
Cool.
And then I'm on Twitter. You can just Ryan Beltran. It's on Twitter.
Well, thank you, Ryan, for joining us today.
Yeah,
I think
appreciate it, Richie. Yeah.
I think the crew's definitely got some great takeaways, and I appreciate you joining us here today in New York.
Likewise.
Well, you live here, so it's home for you.
Yeah.
And thank you, everyone, for joining us today. We're going to have more of these sessions over the coming months. We have a stacked cast, I guess you could say, or group of guests. You're not hired to be here, but like a stacked group of people coming, and we're excited to have you come and join us again. And if you have other guests that you want to recommend, we highly recommend that you let us know, and you can email me at richie@levanta.io, and I'd be happy to connect with your potential guests and have them here in New York City. Thanks for joining us today, everyone.